I get a lot of emails from guys who are frustrated and angry about their wife, girlfriend's avoidant behavior. You know, oftentimes they've gone online, they've researched attachment theory, attachment styles, and they start asking themselves the question, can you really build a strong relationship with an avoidant partner? There is a lot of misinformation about avoidant behaviors that leads to big mistakes that men fall into, which push their partners further away. So in this video, we're going to break down the misconceptions about avoidant partners, highlight the crucial mistakes to avoid, and then we're going to talk about the real strategies for building a secure relationship for both partners. So for those of you who don't know, avoidant behaviors are simply self-protection behaviors. These are things such as emotional withdrawal, reluctance to rely on others, fear of intimacy, conflict avoidance, hyper-independence, distrust of others' intentions, and difficulty expressing affection. And in this video, I'm not going to talk specifically about attachment styles. I've actually done a much deeper video on attachment styles, which I'll link to up above and in the description down below. So when we refer to an avoidant partner, this is simply someone who is currently displaying avoidant behaviors. So misunderstanding avoidant behaviors in your partner leads to massive emotional discords. And there's three main misconceptions that fuel this huge problem. The first is this myth that your partner is damaged goods. You know, men often assume avoidant women are broken or traumatized beyond repair. And this patronizing attitude creates a really toxic dynamic, pushing avoidant partners further away and reinforcing their need to distance. The second myth is the stereotype that they're irrational. A lot of guys falsely think that this avoidant behavior lacks any rational basis. They get it into their mindset that this behavior doesn't connect the dots. There's no logical reason to behave this way. Ultimately, this leads to dismissing a lot of valid concerns and invalidating your partner's feelings. And this is really crucial to understand that these avoidant behaviors stem from very logical reasons if you really dig down and think about them, which is what we're going to talk about later on in the video. If your partner is feeling the need to self-protect, then when you actually start to break it down, it becomes very logical. So it's crucial to understand that even though it may not feel logical, the more you dig down into it, it's actually a very logical step. And lastly, there's this fallacy of partners never changing. When a lot of guys assume that avoidant partners are incapable of growth, they stop investing in the relationship. They stop putting in the effort into learning the skills to navigate and talk with their partner. And this ultimately becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy and creates a vicious cycle of distance and resentment within your relationship. When you fall for this fallacy, you start to modify your own behavior. You start to give up. You start to build resentment. And this resentment starts to be reflected when you're talking with your partner. This, ironically, gives them more need to self-protect. When you get into this idea that they can't change these avoidant behaviors, then it gives them even more reason to display these behaviors. And these misconceptions don't just damage relationships, they destroy them. They lead to really poor treatment of partners who display these avoidant behaviors. And this reinforces all of these avoidant behaviors and erodes the trust. Over time, if you fall for these misconceptions, you can start to become overly critical, dismissive, or even manipulative in your attempt to fix your partner. But the reality is that these misconceptions are actually holding you back from building a powerful, intimate connection. A lot of guys think that when a woman displays avoidant behaviors, these are challenges that actually are preventing the relationship from moving forward, preventing this whole idea of securely attaching, as they talk about in attachment style. The problem is that seeing these discords as negatives is going to make you treat them as negatives. These emotional discords between yourself and your partner can actually be powerful catalysts for growth in your relationship. These discords can be points of connection between you and your partner if approached in the right way. Now, I speak with my members a lot about this idea of this actor-observer bias. The actor-observer bias plays a massive role in how we interpret our partner's actions and their feelings. The actor-observer bias is a psychological phenomenon that causes us to attribute our partner's behavior to their personality, while we excuse our own actions and responses to circumstances. This is a huge barrier to understanding and empathy and actually building that connection with your partner. Because when you fall for this bias, you're falling for all of those misconceptions we spoke about before. This idea that someone can't change, this idea that this is baked in with their personality. Once you start to remove this bias, it starts to transform your entire perspective. You start to see that your partner's avoidant behavior isn't about being difficult or uncaring. It's more of a protective strategy. The more you dig deep and put yourself into your partner's shoes, the more you can start to empathize and understand how their past experiences, their current experience, and all the situation around them is shaping their current behavior. This shift in understanding is really powerful. It allows you to respond with a lot more compassion instead of frustration. It starts to remove this frustration when you're talking to your partner, but actually starts to build this connection between you both. Approaching any behaviors from your partner that are avoidant with more curiosity instead of judgment starts to open up a lot of new possibilities for connection. And you can start to see the underlying needs and fears that drive their behavior. This is the first step into starting to build this connection with your partner before you start to approach conversations with them. Already internally, you're creating a safe space for open communication, and starting to build this understanding forms the foundation for a secure, intimate relationship. Removing it is the first step, but it's only half the battle. The question becomes, once we start to get rid of the actor-observer bias, how can we start to put it into practice when talking with our partner? Once you start to get a process to remove this actor-observer bias, the next step is to start meeting her where she's at. And just before I move forward onto this, if you do want more videos like this on repairing, building, and growing healthy relationships, then feel free to subscribe to my channel for new videos every single week. So the single most powerful technique for connecting with an avoidant partner is meeting her where she is. So this is starting to observe your partner's behavior and approaching them in a more compassionate way. This approach creates a deliberate pace to emotional intimacy, and it's a safe space for your partner to open up at her own speed. A lot of guys make the massive mistake of pushing for a deep connection way too quickly. They dive into these intense emotional discussions thinking that it's going to foster closeness between you and your partner. But if your partner is displaying avoidant behaviors, then this becomes overwhelming and it actually triggers their need to withdraw. And this is a massive mistake that so many people make. They try to force conversations to build trust. They push their partner to open up. The problem is that this actually destroys safety. Pushing to rebuild trust is kind of like bombing to get peace. It's the complete opposite of what needs to be done. So instead, focus on small, non-threatening requests. So suggesting a date night or a short walk to talk about lighter topics. So if your partner isn't in an emotional space to be able to talk about difficult topics, starting off on a lighter moment and gradually over time, increasing the discomfort ever so slightly. This is not about matching your partner's behavior. This is not about avoiding difficult topics of conversation or avoiding talking about emotions. This is actually about meeting them where they're at and then increasing the discomfort level when it comes to conversations. This incremental approach allows your partner to gradually open up, and it builds over time without causing a lot of what we call reactance. When there is conflict, leaning into it in a light way rather than avoiding it. Addressing problems within 24 to 48 hours, signaling that despite the discomfort, your intention is to connect and resolve things together. This shows that healthy conflict leads to growth and connection. And this, over time, in this incremental way, leads the relationship in the right direction by approaching the emotional discords in a step-by-step incremental way. And do this by using statement-oriented language instead of questions. Instead of asking a lot of open-ended questions that can cause emotional distress, so you can use soft statements that leave things open-ended to discussion, and it invites your partner in. Rather than, do you want to talk about your day? You can say something along the lines of, hey, it seems like you had a good day in work today because you seem to come home in a pretty good mood. Was it as good as it seemed? This reduces the pressure of an open-ended question and actually creates a lot more inviting atmosphere for sharing. So create opportunities for connection and allow her to take the lead in opening up. Simply invite your partner to open up rather than pressuring her. By meeting her where she is, you end up showing respect for her boundaries, but building trust over time. And this is the foundation for a secure, intimate relationship with a partner who has avoidant behaviors. And over time, in order to build this connection and deepen the trust with you, it's important to learn how to validate. So validation, if you don't know, I've done a much deeper dive on it, which I'll link to above and in the description down below. But validation is a communication technique that transforms your relationship, especially when your partner has avoidant tendencies. Validation is all about making your partner feel truly seen and understood. Recognizing and understanding their internal experiences without judgment. This is crucial for a partner who is displaying these avoidant behaviors because they feel like it's unsafe to express their needs and emotions. Validation is being able to express a deep understanding to your partner's current feelings. The psychological impact of feeling deeply understood is profound. Learning how to do this is a real skill. When avoidant partners experience validation, it starts to build a sense of safety and acceptance. This leads to increased intimacy and satisfaction within the relationship. So it's crucial to learn how to practice deep validation and shift from questions to soft statements like we mentioned earlier. So for example, you could say something along the lines of, I was thinking about your work day the other day, And I was thinking about the stress that you had with Mona. And I was thinking that if I was in your shoes, I would be livid with the way that Mona treated me. After everything that I'd done for her, she still didn't show me the basic respect a colleague should show. That's how I think I would feel in your shoes. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's not how you felt. This helps to show your partner that not only are you considering their feelings, but you're also trying to put yourself in their shoes. And this reduces the pressure and it invites openness. But remember, in doing this, you may not get it right. And if your partner tells you that your validation was incorrect, then it's really important to not take it personally and make sure you're maintaining a curious and non-judgmental attitude throughout the conversation. The more that you show your partner that you are willing to put the effort in order to build that understanding between you. It's crucial to validate emotions, even if you disagree with the thoughts behind them. Emotions aren't right or wrong, they simply are. This shows that you understand the context of your partner's emotions and it reduces any shame that your partner may feel. The transformative effects of this are massive. One of my members that I've been working with for a few months came to me talking about how their partner had avoidant tendencies. And they had been part of a program that had reinforced that these avoidant tendencies were ingrained in a person. But over time, they started to build this trust, curiosity within the relationship, curiosity within the conversation. They started to build this trust with their avoidant partner, and these avoidant behaviors started to reduce. And this is really important to understand, is that the impact that your behavior has on your partner is massive. Once you start to change the way that you approach conversations, the way that you approach your partner, the more that you can start to influence the environment around your partner and be able to open them up and reduce those avoidant behaviors over time. If you do want to join the members and I, then join me in my free relationship bootcamp, where you'll learn the same steps and tools that all of my members use to start turning their relationships around. Just click on the link in the description to join us today. So the more that you practice these validation techniques, these skills, you'll start to notice your partner becoming more and more open, building that trust between you both, and more willing to engage with you emotionally. This creates a positive feedback loop. The more you validate, the safer she feels and the more she opens up. Deep validation dismantles the walls of fear and self-protection. It allows for true emotional intimacy. And by mastering this skill, not just getting good at it, but mastering it, you're starting to show your partner, not just tell your partner, that it's safe to open up with you and it's safe to be around you.